Hello, everyone. Welcome to the People Strategy Forum. So, if your business can't run without you and you don't own a company, you own a job, really. So, Kasim has built multiple successful businesses. He sold a high performing Google Ads agency and now helps founders delegate like pros, starting with that crucial first hire, that executive assistant, somebody to really help you grow and scale. And so, through Pareto talent, he's on track to place over 300 executive assistants in 2025 alone, giving leaders the freedom to focus on strategy, growth, and impact. So today he's going to show us that delegation isn't abdication, it's amplification. So for every leader wanting to attract top talent, retain high performers, and scale without burnout, this episode is your blueprint because Qasim is going to show us how we can replicate ourselves for success and so that we can all grow and scale. So welcome, Qasim.
Thanks for having me, Sam. I appreciate you.
Yeah, so Qasim, I would just love to understand how you got to where you are today because I know that you are a serial entrepreneur. You've had several successful businesses, and this is your new venture. So tell us a little bit about your life journey. How did you become so driven and successful in your
I
life?
call myself the world's greatest failure. I think the key to my success is I've just failed more than everybody, probably by a multiple of maybe 10. I'm a welfare baby. My mom was blind. I was raised by a blind single mother on Social Security disability in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And like most poor kids, I thought money was going to solve all my problems.
Yeah,
So like from the age of 7, dude, I've been hustling. I was buying candy at the grocery store at 10 cents and selling it at school for 25. And the ideas didn't get a whole lot better from there. But it was the reps, like I just kept doing it.
mm,
And for anybody listening, it sounds so horribly unsophisticated, but I really do think that the key to success is just staying on the field.
yeah,
Like even if you're doing it poorly. I'd rather have somebody who stayed out on the field poorly than somebody who took really sophisticated, very well done shots incrementally, but ran back for shelter anytime the storm came out. I've been so unbelievably lucky uh, a couple of times, and I've noticed that luck happens when I stay out on the field. So, for whatever that's worth, hopefully that's not too much of a soapbox moment. Just stay out on the field, man.
no, yeah, I know that, and I think that's super important. I mean, showing up is the first step to success, right? You have to be there. You have to be out in the field, as you say. But there's a I know that you've had persistence and in searching for success, and of course, I think that's one thing that all leaders need to understand is that success comes with multiple failures. And as the mantra goes, fail fast and learn and go to the next thing and keeping that mindset. So what has helped you really maintain that growth mindset and not get so destroyed by those failures that you faced in the past?
So, hindsight being 2020, it's easy to look at my failures and say, oh, thank God that happened. And I spent a fair amount of time sitting in a bathtub of gasoline lighting matches. You know what I mean? Like I had the years of depression and just like, oh, I'm worthless and I'm not worthy and I can't do this and this is horrible. And so what I want to avoid is it's so easy to play like graybeard oracle, and be dismissive with the platitudes of, oh, your failures are the most important thing that can possibly happen to you. If you're going through it, gosh, does it suck?
No kidding.
Like I've foreclosure, repossession, eviction. I've trolled Costco on an expired Costco card just to eat the free tryout that the little lunch ladies give. That's how I was eating on the weekends, man. Like
Yeah,
it's gotten hard and bad.
yeah.
And a lot of it was just desperation. I remember that one of the lowest points in my entrepreneurial life was I couldn't make it happen. And so I went to Target and I applied to be a dock worker. I applied to unload trucks at 4 o'clock in the morning and I wasn't qualified. Like they didn't call me back. And so it's not even that I was like persistent as much as I had no other option.
Yeah.
And that ended up being a blessing. So, I think for the entrepreneurial brethren, the men and women that are currently struggling, I hope that I know it doesn't diminish the pain felt, but I do hope it offers maybe a light,
Hmm.
because like if you really do, success truly can be inevitable if you stick it out. You have
Yeah.
to stick it out intelligently. You have to know when to pivot and when to be nimble. But it does get easier and it does get better. And I think for the most part, and this is the thing that was really helpful for me, most people are rooting for you. Like when I really buckled down and decided to do the work and stop trying to take shortcuts, man, help came out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Mentors and friends and strategic partners and referral partners. And like when you really commit and commit to doing it the right way, uh, it's like the universe conspires on your behalf.
Hmm.
It ends up being, kind of magic in a lot of ways. Hopefully that doesn't sound too touchy-feely.
No, no, no. Hey, hey, we need that. So I think that the mindset element, development, and so forth is important for a lot of our leaders out there that are trying to stay ahead of what's going on in the market. I mean, more and more. I mean, the pace of business is just accelerating. And so, how did you really keep on top of the trends? Be able to is there certain training that you put yourself through? How did you become an expert in so many things?
The mistake that I think we've made in the Western world, especially, is we over-index towards education. So I'll use our current endeavor right now, what we're doing as an example. I think that if somebody's listening to this podcast, if you really think about it, it probably puts them in the top 5% of the professional world because Netflix is amazing and interesting, way more interesting than me. YouTube is amazing and interesting, right? So like to sit and listen to a podcast with a couple of guys talking about something as dry as how to be more efficient in a business. Like you actually have to be in the top 5%, let's say.
Yeah.
However, what I think the mistake that I think the top 5%ers make is they over index towards education. So for every hour listening, and this is a fruitful endeavor, I'm not telling you not to do it. I
Mhm.
think you absolutely should. It's the only reason I'm here as a podcast guest. I think this is actually my highest and best use is raising awareness in this way. And the people who listen to podcasts, read books, watch videos, take courses, go to continuing education, they love to learn. But often, in my experience, they're afraid to do. I think for every hour you spend listening, reading, watching, whatever, you should spend at least an hour doing. Execute, create, build, draw, paint, sing, dance, move, verb. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like do the damn thing. And we've built a cultural ethos around education that allows education to be the endeavor unto itself that you get the kudos and props for.
Hmm.
Hey, Mrs. Partry, I did my homework. A plus, Sam, you did it. You were done, right? You learned. But the problem is in real life, learning is the beginning, not the end.
Right.
So I think we need to index towards doing and I don't know if this is ADD or fractional autism or the fact that I'm a high school dropout, but I over-index towards action. It's ready, fire, aim, and it frustrates the daylights out of people around me. The thing that's really frustrating, I think, for them, I'm so much more successful than I deserve to be, and I have the experience often where I can tell people are thinking to themselves, dude, I'm so much smarter than that guy. And that's true, right? Like most of the people that I'm in an incubator. I own an incubator. People pay money to come and listen to me teach them how to build businesses. And these are polished people. And they love things
Hmm.
like planning and business plans and EOS and, level 10 meetings and all this stuff. And I'm like, I will today. If you and I have an idea, I'll build a landing page and I'll throw it up on Facebook and say, hey, who's interested in something like this? And it's done poorly and it's articulated poorly and it's not fully fleshed out and the link to that thing is broken and the page isn't mobile optimized and the site speed and everybody will come out and say like, hey, did you know that this isn't as good as it could be? And I'm like, yeah, and I'm learning.
Yeah.
Where somebody else is going to take 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months in the lab, launch the thing only to find out that the offer's bad. Right? So I think indexing towards action, man, especially in an AI world
Hmm.
where iteration is built into the mechanisms that are, they're $1 trillion super intelligent computers that can just do everything faster than you can do it. Just fricking ship it.
Yeah.
Just ship. And I know maybe that's hubristic. Obviously, it
No,
doesn't
no.
apply to some things. It's not a good lesson for heart surgery.
Yeah, no
It's
kidding.
a great lesson for business building.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So one of my coaches that helped me be successful calls that imperfect action.
Mm,
Again, you need to get it out there enough so it's 70% and move forward because you can spend too much time analysis paralysis to getting that final 30% and it's just not driving value. And you can also always improve it as you go. But what I would love to dig into, awesome, is I know when was a moment, Kasim, when you were going through your entrepreneurship journey, and you felt like, okay, things are starting to click, business is coming in, and I'm starting to get a little overwhelmed here.
I started to niche down. So when you start pretty much any business, but when you start as an entrepreneur, everybody has the bad habit of starting too broad,
Yeah,
which I actually think, to be honest with you, is a good choice. I think telling young men and women to niche down too early is like telling somebody to walk out into their backyard and choose arbitrarily where they're going to drill for oil.
hmm.
Like there's no way to know where there's oil unless you start broad. So I think starting broad is the right way to start, as long as you know the point is to niche down over time. And when I started to niche down, what I realized was I started Solutions 8, which is the business that I sold. It's my claim to fame. I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. When I sold it, we had $100 million in ad spend under management. I sold it for an eight-figure sum to a SoftBank backed MarTech company. Solutions 8 started as a full funnel marketing agency. Full funnel is a fancy way of saying we'll do anything for money.
Yeah,
And when I began cutting off services, which didn't happen because I'm smart. It happened because I just got sick of being yelled at. I'm like, I'm not going to do video editing anymore because it's too hard and other people can do it cheaper. So I just stopped doing it. And then I realized I was like, man, I got a little more efficient and interestingly, a little more profitable. I thought I'd lose money because I'm no longer bringing in that line of service, but it let me focus on other things, acquire customers in a specific way. Like saying no made me more efficient and profitable. And then I'd cut off another service because it would piss me off or I wasn't good at it or I lost my vendor. And then I got a little more efficient, a little more profitable. And Sam, I'm a slow learner, dude. It took me way too long before I realized, this niching down thing, this is actually, and it was my business partner. He wasn't even a business partner at the time. I brought in a gentleman, his name's John Moran, smartest human I've ever worked with in my life. And he was an employee when he started. And he was the one that said, dude, we should just do Google Ads. Like every client that's successful is successful with Google Ads first. Why don't we just do that? And I'm like, no, you don't understand business. There's so much opportunity out there, and you can get $100,000 website build, and why would we turn that down? And he kind of just every now and again would just, not even passive aggressive, just a reminder, dude, we could just do this. And at the time, we were outsourcing 100% of our Google Ads, so we didn't even have any fulfillment
yeah.
work.
Wow.
We were just a sales engine. And when we finally did it, to answer your question directly, oh my gosh, like we got inundated and we became, I think, the best Google Ads agency that's ever existed because we were the only agency dedicated purely to Google Ads. And what's funny is I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I've never run a Google ad campaign myself end to end in my life. Because you don't need to, right? To build a business around anything, you don't actually need to know that thing. You don't have to be a baker to build a really good bakery. You don't have to be a mechanic to build a really good auto shop. And that was such a phenomenal lesson to learn is entrepreneurship is not fulfillment. And the business exploded. I mean, I had 200 clients when we sold. The average agency tops out at like 30s for a big agency.
Yeah.
So that I don't know. How did I do there, Sam? I kind of rambled there a little. We meandered.
No, no, I think that's good. I mean, the thing is that there's leaders out there right now that are looking for success. They're struggling. They're doing a lot of different things. They're overwhelmed, and niching down is one of the important things that you mentioned. And also, I think that what that really means to a lot of leaders out there, niching down is also another form of delegation, right? And
Hmm.
so getting that trusted person that you can rely on, you can delegate work to. And really that takes us to what you're doing today and finding these exceptional people, these administrative assistants, these executive assistants, these support personnel that are really taking the load off of leaders out there, right? So how is that? What really motivated you to get into that business?
It's funny. It was handed to me on a silver platter. I sold Solutions 8. And the one question, due diligence was a nightmare. It was a 9 month proctology exam. You get all these Goldman Sachs Ivy League people looking up your undies, asking every question about everything that's ever happened, and you feel stupid and you feel inefficient, and they're just poking at every part of your business.
Yeah.
And the only thing that they were complimentary about, and the thing they kept saying was, dude, where do you find these people?
Mm.
I had 80 employees. And I have the best employees in the world. I spent 20 years of my life developing a framework for attracting top talent, and it blew them away. They were like, I had 40% margins in an industry that aimed at 15%. And so they kept saying, where do you find, like they'd meet my onboarding manager was a young lady named Angelia from the Philippines. And most people in the Western world won't outsource manager level, director level, C-level work. They'll only outsource grunt work. And here they come in, Goldman Sachs types that are used to a certain template. And they're like, your onboarding manager, your first touch for all your clients is somebody in the Philippines that most companies wouldn't allow a role anything above a low-level VA.
Hmm.
And she was extraordinary. And the head of my Google Ads strategy team was a young man in India named Ankar. And my CTO was a young man in Ukraine named Ivan. And my COO was the end. Like I had all these people in these international markets, and they were like, "How do you find these folks?" Because they were all bloodthirsty killers, deadly assassins, like the
Yeah.
best, most hardworking people you've ever. And
Yeah.
and they only had to say it about 50 times. Again, me being a slow learner, where I was like, you know what? I'm actually pretty good at this thing, And so when we sold Solutions 8, I signed this 5-year non-compete, which means I couldn't do marketing.
Yeah.
The only it was is what I was nerd famous in the marketing world. Everybody in the marketing world know me, but nobody else in any other realm of life knew who I was. And me and my now business partner Yvonne, who interestingly, full circle moment, was one of my EAs who just had a meteoric rise through our organization. Um, we decided to launch this staffing agency. And we're like, dude, we're good at attracting talent, and it takes 1,000 applicants to produce one EA.
Mm.
So these are like truly the best of 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 the world. Uh, and it has been one of the most fulfilling things in my life because you get to take somebody in an emerging nation, which, dude, I mean, coming again full circle, I'm a welfare baby, right? And people hear that and like, oh, poor Kasim, and I'm like, well, I don't know. A welfare baby is a lot like a trust fund baby, because like if you really think about it, I was born into an ecosystem that has decided to care for those that need public assistance.
Hmm.
So I was clothed, I was sheltered, I was fed, I was educated, and that's my definition of a trust, right? The trust just happened to be the United States Social Security Office. You look at the rest of the world, you look at Latin America, Eastern Europe, North Africa, most of Asia, they don't have those social systems. And so if you take somebody from an emerging nation, you pay them more than they'll ever make domestically. And dude, we can afford to pay them 3, 5, 10 times more and still be a fraction of what we pay domestically.
Mm.
You let them work from home, you let them work on a semi-flexible schedule, you will change lives. And you'll experience something that most Western employers have never experienced, which is gratitude.
Yeah.
Our employee base here, God forgive me for saying, dude, I'm related to Thomas Jefferson. I love this country. I'm so grateful to be here. God bless America, et cetera, et cetera. We won, and our labor pool is spoiled. People here do not need to work, almost by literal definition, which means what? First words out of a kid's mouth when I hire him is, what's my title? How much PTO do you have? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying we don't produce exceptional talent because we do, but the exceptional talent in the United States of America or in all of Western Europe goes to Fortune 1000 companies, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook. Gobble those people up. Or they go to a startup offering stock options that can make them a quadrillionaire.
Hmm.
Or most likely they work for themselves, right? Because it's the easiest thing to do in this country, I think, is to be an entrepreneur because we've lowered the barrier to entry so much. So I'm not trying to slander our collective environment. I'm actually really proud of what we've done. And for everybody in the HR space, the people management space, this is a more difficult demographic to serve. You actually feel like you're serving them.
Yeah.
Where when you hire somebody in an international market, you become the aspiration. To work for a US company, if you're in Latin America, is like a kid out of Stanford trying to work at Google,
Hmm.
and you really do get to dictate terms and you get to raise the bar and you get to ask for the best of the best. And that's available and accessible to all of us. And you don't have to hire through my staffing agency to do that, by the way. You can do this right now yourself. Take some time to comb through 1,000 applicants to get to one hire. You need a framework. And I have that. I give that to people for free. They can have it literally for free.
I know you
No
have
cost,
a
no
new
obligation, no
book out,
assessment.
right?
Yeah. So if somebody wants to know how I do this, this is my life's work. It's the only thing I'm really world class at is talent acquisition. And I wrote a book called Hire. You can go to thehirebook.com and I'll give you literally everything. It's the book, all the templates, the framework, a job posting board, like everything that you need in order to do this. And I walk through the strategy, and the strategy is riddled with what I call fly traps. So the issue that you'll run into if you're willing to pay more than anybody's willing to pay in a market, and you're offering to let people work from home, which isn't the ubiquitous truth internationally that it is here, and you're letting them work from a semi-flexible schedule, and you're giving them meaningful work, here's what's going to happen. You are going to get carpet bombed with applications. And that's a problem because there's no way to sift through that. And most people have been taught to hire using interviews and resumes. Well, that's an inadequate system because interviews and resumes tell you nothing until you've worked with somebody. So my framework is built around figuring out who the peak performers really are.
Hmm.
And you do that through a system of fly traps. So to give you some examples, my job descriptions always say to apply, your subject line must read, I actually read the instructions. And when they submit their application, if it doesn't read, I actually read the instructions, it's automatically filtered out. The EA responsible for reviewing those things never even sees it. And it's a pretty good note for the applicant to actually read the instructions. Because then the instructions will say things like, send me a link to your resume in a PDF format with this naming convention. Now, do I care that it's a link, not an attachment? Do I care that it's PDF, not Word? Do I care about naming conventions? No. I want to know you can pay attention. And you
Hmm.
follow very simple instructions. Because if you're going to be working remote job is two jobs. It's the proficiency I'm hiring you for,
Yep.
and it's the ability to work remote and be proactive. And then I'll do some like really sneaky stuff. Like when you apply, let's say you applied for a job, I'd say, hey Sam, thanks so much for applying. I appreciate you following the instructions. I'm a stickler for details, as you can tell. I've learned resumes and interviews tell me nothing until we've worked together. How about you let me pay you in advance to do a trial project? I'll pay you for 2 hours of your time. And then you figure out in whatever market what 2 hours is worth. In the Philippines, you can do for $40, let's say. I'll give you $40 for 2 hours worth of work. It's not going to make anybody rich, but it lets them know I respect your time and it allows you to hold the bar high. Here's what I do though, is I say, if you agree, send me your PayPal address. I'll pay you in advance. They send me their PayPal. I send them $40 and then I don't follow up. And then you're like, well, wait a minute, Kasim, you're wasting $40. But am I? Because now for $40, I get to see who's going to ghost me, who's going to steal from me, who's proactive, who's actually, and if let's say you do that 10 times, that's $400 to figure out who really is a peak performer. That's just low cost. You're going to
Yeah.
spend way more on a bad hire. You do that 20 times, 50 times, and I still think the arithmetic works. And then when they follow up, I send them the trial project. The trial project's always related to the role I'm hiring for. So if you're hiring a graphic designer, send them a hard graphic design project. If you're hiring a project manager, send them a hard project management project. But I'll do things like I'll send them, hey, you have to log into this Box account to download the assets. I'll send them the wrong username and password. And I'll wait to see how long it is they follow up. And
Yeah.
I'll ask them based on the scope of work, when do you think you can get this done? I won't give them a deadline. Like you want to see
Yeah.
the job, it's a meta analysis. It's not actually the trial project. It's how well do we work together? How do you format your emails? How do you manage expectations? How do you communicate? When you get to the end, and it's all automated. All of it's because you can, the first time you do it, there's probably some manual remediation, but you can build this pipeline for this extraordinary talent. And when they get to the end, dude, 1,000 becomes 20 maybe.
Yeah.
They can actually jump through all these hoops. And then you just hire the person you like the most because it's a formality. The interview is a formality. It's like, can I stand your face and your voice? And I end up with these people they'll run through walls. And my first EA became my director of automations. My second EA became my director of social. My third EA became my CTO, my best friend, and now my business partner. I have a young man that was my EA. I own AEO.co. So answer engine optimization is going to replace search engine optimization. Nobody knows that. The entire business was built by an EA. The
Mhm.
book was written, the community was built, the website was built by an EA. I
Wow.
own syndications.com, built by an EA. Seedoil.com. I'm business partners with Joe Polish. The whole thing's being built by an EA. Because when you have these EAs, they're not assistants, really. They're
Hmm.
clones of you. And when I delegate, I don't tell somebody, I don't micromanage. I give them an end result. I call it the black box of delegation. I say, here are all the resources available to you. Here's the money I'm willing to spend, the software I have, the other stakeholders, the other employees you can pull in, my brand guidelines, whatever. Here's what you start with. Here's your materials. Here's my desired end result. I want to build a software application that tokenizes real estate and allows for a secondary market. And then what happens in between is none of my damn business. It's the black box. Don't go in the box. And what most entrepreneurs do, even if they hire a peak performer, they start to micromanage. They're like, hey, change the circle to a square and change red to blue. And the problem with that is authorship creates ownership. As soon as you do that, your peak performer takes the hands off the wheel because they're like, oh, Sam's driving.
Yeah.
Like, and you nullify the value of these miracles that you're hiring. So find a peak performer. They're available. They're all over the world. Sadly, they don't have access to opportunities, generally speaking, so they'll be thrilled to work for you. And then tell them what you want as an end result and get the hell out of their way.
Hmm.
And dude, like magic. I have a portfolio of 14 different businesses, all built by EAs. Built by EAs, run by EAs, managed by EAs, grown by EAs. Like I've generated a $10 million net worth to put this in just hard numbers. And I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I've never run a Google Ads campaign in my life. I built the highest performing real estate investment campaign on the planet before I knew anything about real estate investing or lead generation. I own the largest English speaking Montessori community in the world. I'm not a trained Montessorian. I'm not a Montessori school owner. You can do anything if you play the Dan Sullivan game. It's who, not how. So
Okay.
anyway, that was super soapboxy.
So, but no, but the thing is that you've been successful in doing this. What prevents your leaders that you talk to from adopting this model? What are the things that are on their mind that prevents them from being successful?
So I'm gonna slander our collective environment again. This is a new thesis that I've developed because now that I'm staffing high quality talent, I'm starting to notice something. And these are my friends. Most of my EA, we have more demand than we have supply. So my EAs, I'm very selective about who we'll place with. I won't place for grunt work. I won't place for cold calls. I won't place for data entry. I won't place for garbage. You have to give my people meaningful work. That's what you have to do to a peak performer is give them meaningful work. And so I'm placing these EAs with some of my closest friends. And the thing that is occurring to me about entrepreneurs is they're actually afraid of competence. They don't like somebody smarter than them or more capable than them or somebody that runs them. And it's subconscious for the most part, but it gets really uncomfortable because they're like, oh gosh, this person is so capable. They could steal, right? They could steal my client, steal my business, run away. What's going to stop them from taking this and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this happen in real time. I'm actually watching people prefer mediocrity. They prefer manageable people. The problem with manageable people is they need to be managed. Now, is there a risk in hiring a hyper competent person? Yes, obviously. But there's also a risk in hiring a manageable person or an incompetent person. The key is aligning your interests and your incentives. You have to make sure that when you hire a peak performer, you're paying more. As the business grows, they're incentivized with the business growth. They can make more. Like it's all the things that we're generally the scarcity mindset keeps us from doing. But if you do that, they run farther, faster, more
Mhm.
effectively than you'll ever run, and you end up still owning majority of the business. So, I'll back up. I'd rather own a slice of a watermelon than a whole grape. So, profit share, equity. These are conversations that scare the daylights out of people. With peak performers, you have to have them. With AEO.co, I reserve 10% of the net profit to share with our employees. And I share all our numbers, all of our COGS, all of our salaries. They know everything. And you think like, oh gosh, that's significant. I still own 90, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that's about all it takes. When John Moran's a really good example too. When I started Solution Data as a Google Ads agency, he was an employee. He became the greatest Google Ads mind in the world. And I had to slap golden handcuffs on him. I gave him 10% of the business. We had an 8-figure exit. I own 90, he owned 10. And he's the Google Ads mind in the Google Ads agency.
Hmm.
So it's not hard to align your incentives, but I think most people fail because they're afraid of competence. They don't even realize they're afraid of competence. And if they're not afraid of competence, the other thing that happens, the other issue that I'm seeing is they believe in the value of their own intervention. The amount of times I witness entrepreneurs who have my EAs begin to critique things that are subjective. The EA creates a landing page or a piece of copy or an offer. Like if something's subjective, let it the mother F go. Shut your mouth and just move on. It's like, oh, well, you need to round out the soft edges and this needs to be that way and tweak it. And it's like, stop what you just did because you just took this person who is motivated up until this point, and now you made the thing they're working on yours. Nobody's ever going to be passionate to work on your thing the way that they would be to work on their thing.
Yeah.
And so if it's objectively wrong, critique it. I own a business called Architects. It does high level services for go high level the software. I don't like the logo. I don't like the brand. I don't like the name. I don't like the URL. I don't like anything about it. And I'm wrong because it's profitable, Sam. It
Yeah.
actually makes a boatload of money and I don't have to touch it. I'm a completely absentee owner because somebody else created all of those things. Like if you can just get out of your own way enough to realize like, okay, there's another reasonably intelligent human being who's going to take this stuff and run with it. And I don't have to participate in every little thing. That's the problem with delegation is most people think that micromanagement is delegation. It's not. You want to delegate projects, not tasks.
Okay.
And if you're doing that, you're actually letting somebody create from the ground up. It's a vulnerable thing to do.
Yeah. Well, the vulnerability is part of it. So let's talk about risk. So, if you have client obligations and you're working with sensitive information and you're sending it to different places across the world. I mean, what are the things that you do where you tell your leaders that are hiring people from multiple locations to appease them of security, trust, integrity?
Yeah. So the benefit that we have is Google has already solved this problem for us. And not just them, the Fortune 100 has solved this problem because they have this problem too. So Google, Amazon, Microsoft, etc. You have app suites that allow for closed, self-contained ecosystems, data islands. And so what we do at Pareto Talent is every one of our EAs exists within the confines of our Google Suite, which means your email, your Drive, your calendar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All your data repository is in our closed ecosystem. We force 2FA, we force security compliance, we force browser compliance. You can basically maintain the security of your organization regardless of device, regardless of IP, as much as is possible. Now, does that mean there's no risk? No, right? Like somebody could be held up at gunpoint and forced to send an email. Somebody could lose their laptop at a coffee shop and they left it open. Like all of the classic risks that just exist because humanity is humanity will always be there.
Mhm.
But to mitigate them all the way up to the point that is possible, there's a trillion-dollar organization that's figured that on your behalf. And to be honest with you, it's actually hard coded. It's hard to screw this up. The key is making sure people stay inside of that ecosystem. The minute somebody starts communicating with a client using a personal email, now you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, like sending files or documents outside of that closed. So that's you want to maintain a data island. And for us, it's a fireable offense to not stay within the island, and everybody knows that. So it's training more than it is anything because the technical infrastructure is already there. And the benefit you have is somebody does, let's say, lose a laptop, go rogue, get fired. It's one button, it's one click, and I can disconnect your access across every level of analysis.
Mm.
And because of single sign-on, I'm not just disconnecting your access from that application. I'm disconnecting your access from everything, all password keepers, anything that you would subsequently access. And I won't tell you it's not a problem, but it's not the problem that people think it is. You know, like this is something that has been solved for, and as long as you follow these protocols, Google has international employees and they do just fine. And I happen to know for a fact because I've seen the internal workings of it, this is exactly what they do.
Now, the next thing that a leader might be thinking is, geez, time zone. Geez, if I hire somebody out of the Philippines, I mean, it's the middle of the night when I'm doing business here in the United States.
Yeah,
What do
you're
you, what
right.
do you, yeah.
So it's a balance of risks. I think what we've done to the Filipino culture with graveyard shifts is actually it's catastrophically damaging. We have to take into consideration cultural nuances. So like the Filipinos are so family focused. To ask a Filipino to work nights and weekends is asking a lot. You're asking for a lot of sacrifice. You contrast that to South Asians, Indians and Pakistanis. It's not that they're not family focused, but they're nocturnal. If you go to India or Pakistan, dude, restaurants are open till like midnight, 1, 2. They don't eat dinner till 11 p.m. You know what I mean? So asking them to shift is a different
Yeah.
request than asking the Filipinos to shift. And there's a lot of cultural nuances like that. Filipinos are famously conflict averse.
Mm.
So something as little as having a salary range in your job description hurts your ability to hire Filipinos because they don't want to have to sit there and negotiate their salary. And I have a whole section on my book that talks about the cultural nuances. Take those into consideration in your hiring. I love Latin America for that reason. Latin America is more or less on our time zone. Their English proficiency is extraordinarily high. And let's get real incendiary here and hope I don't get canceled. The Latin accent is less repellent to the Western ear. So
Mm.
my father's Pakistani, my mom's white, my dad's Pakistani. My dad's Pakistani accent will infuriate my Trump supporting grandfather. Like my mom's dad, if you put him on the phone with my dad,
Yeah.
cold call. There's nothing that pisses him off more than the South Asian accent because
Yeah.
he's been abused by call centers. He's not racist, right? It's just a practical reality of life
Yeah.
where the Latin accent could be his neighbor. So are you hiring for somebody that's going to be on the phone with your very conservative constituency? Then maybe you should look at Latin America more than you look at South Asia. But Latin Americans aren't necessarily as technically affluent as the South Asians. And so you know what I mean? Like it's this Venn diagram of needs and then figure out where it is that your needs potentially land
Hmm.
and then balance the risks. Eastern Europeans are great if you need technical proficiency and an accent that your Western audience isn't going to be repelled by, but Eastern Europeans are harder to work with. My best friend is Ukrainian. He's my business partner at Pareto. He was my EA. There's nobody more apt or likely to tell you your baby is ugly than an Eastern European. You know what I mean? Like they're the most blunt people
Yeah.
in the whole wide world.
I
And so
hear
you want to
you.
be so like it's not that there aren't problems. It's not that there aren't risks. Dude, Indians and Pakistanis have more holidays than any group of humans I've ever encountered, and they're late to everything. If a Pakistani tells you Friday at noon, it means Monday at 4. And they're kind of offended when you get mad. They're like, dude, come on, we all knew it. You know, so like You have the most technically adept group of humans on the planet, but they also can't be on time for a thing. So you
Yeah.
just build that into your framework, or you beat your head against a wall trying to fix a whole culture of people,
Yes.
right? So there are religious nuances, cultural nuances, linguistic nuances, time zone nuances, geopolitical nuances. My CTO was in Ukraine when Russia attacked. My EA was in Argentina when their economy collapsed.
Hmm.
Like these things had a really substantive impact on my business. And you navigate around them because without them, you lose access to the most potent labor pool available to the developed world.
Yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, if you have a person like you in your corner and as an expert in these cultural nuances around the world, a leader can really uh, make sure that they're navigating these effectively, right?
Yeah. Well, you just have
Yeah.
to be committed to honestly just like loving on people.
Yeah.
I learned over time that Filipinos suffer in silence. The onboarding manager I mentioned, Angelia,
Mm.
dude, she was doing the job of two people for about 6 months before I figured it out.
Uh,
Poor girl was working herself to death, nights, weekends, overtime. And it's because the Filipinos have a really hard time raising their hand and saying, "Hey, I'm drowning."
mm.
And it was somebody else who brought it up who's like, "Hey, I think Angelia has too much to do." And I hopped on a call and I was like, "Are you okay?" She goes, "No." But I didn't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
my mind, I'm like, as soon as I send you more to do than you can do, you'll tell me, of course. And that was culturally not true. And
Yeah.
so then you have to create the cultural conduits that allow for that type of communication. And you'll make mistakes. And that's okay as long as you're committed to fixing them.
Hmm. Well, great. So, Kasim, I mean, as we're kind of getting to the top of our conversation here, what are the key things that you want leaders to think about as they're overwhelmed and they're looking for a solution and they're on the fence? I mean, should I be looking at an EA or should I be hiring somebody that's down the hall for me, local in town? What do you tell them?
Yeah, I'd say geography aside, the least scalable part of your business or your organization is you.
Hmm.
So the most important thing you can do is get yourself help. And people are miracles. I mean that religiously. Even if you're not a religious person, the fact that we're these ultra smart super apes on this floating rock solving problems and sending things into the sky, like, dude, people are extraordinary. And so if you think to yourself like, oh, it's so hard to find good help, or if you want something done to yourself, you're wrong. You're wrong. You just need to find the right person. There are miracles available, and most people, 9 out of 10, statistically speaking, Douglas Brackman wrote a book about this called Driven. 9 out of 10 people are not entrepreneurial. They want to be employees. They're available and accessible to you. So if you'll spend the time kissing frogs, finding the person that's right for you, you can not just clone yourself, because even the idea of cloning yourself is there's some arrogance to it. How about somebody better?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How about somebody better that actually does whatever it is you're trying to do better, more effectively, more efficiently than you, and then frees you up to go do whatever else you want to do? And those people, I promise you, exist, but you have to be committed to finding them.
Yes, for sure. So I know you have just a ton of things going on yourself. I mean, you have lots of different businesses and so forth. But so for those leaders out there that are wanting to know more about you, Kasim, more about how you can help them, what should they do?
Yeah, I'd love to help. You can go to kasim.me, Kasim.me. I train and staff executive assistants. I will only staff for meaningful work. So if you're like, hey, I need someone who's gonna make 200 cold calls a day, like that, we're not your jam.
Hmm.
You can have my book for free. The book's at that link. You can follow my socials. I create a ton of content, and uh, and I'd love to help. My goal in life is to help people in emerging nations find meaningful work. And dude, I think the anthropological significance behind helping people with employment, it's hard to find another endeavor that is as impactful.
Hmm.
There's not a charity on the planet that does as much good as just giving people a good job.
Yes, no kidding. Well, thank you for the conversation. This has been great. I mean, it's right up my mantra. I mean, meaningful work, keeping people engaged is the core of what I do as a total rewards consultant. So I help companies do that across the globe. So it's nice to hear that as part of your mantra. And so thank you so much, Kasim, for all the intelligence and good wisdom that you're providing our listeners today.
I appreciate you having me on, Sam. Thank you, brother.
Yes. And so for all of you listening out there on the People Strategy Forum, we'll see you next week for another great show. So thank you so much. Right. Take care.